Tonight on Bridge City News, all candidates' forums are coming up in our city. It'll be a chance for you to get to know who's running in the Alberta provincial election. We will tell you where and when. The World Men's Curling Championships kick off in Lethbridge tomorrow. We have a preview. And Len Benning is back with another Movie Mill Minute with highlights of some of the big films playing at the Mill this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. They are the stewards of the land, the so-called first environmentalists, and they rely heavily on the weather and predictable climate to grow food to put on your plate. That is why it's somewhat surprising that Alberta farmers like Ben Dick are resoundingly opposed to a carbon tax.
The carbon tax very directly affects a lot of what we do on the farm. My family runs a greenhouse at Bow Island, and we use a lot of natural gas to heat our operation. And the carbon tax has added thousands of dollars every month to our utility bill, and it's not money we have to just throw out for nothing. So yeah, it's raised our input costs for a lot of things, for the fuel we use on the farm, fuel in our vehicles, and heating costs. Yeah, it's a huge impact for us, negatively. Personally, I do agree with energy efficiency. If a carbon tax could all go toward making us more energy efficient and cutting fuel waste, which is good. But if there was a tax that it all went to a very logical, tangible result that could that we use less energy. So that's one thing. I don't see it going to that. So from my part, I would say that the carbon tax is a money grab that's going nowhere. It's feeding the government, and they'll probably give us some refunds to make us feel better about what we did. So I think it's a waste of effort.
Dick is upset about the financial impact Alberta's new carbon tax is having on his farm. He says in the end, he has to pass on that price increase to the consumer through the food they purchase. The carbon tax is a big issue heading into the provincial election, April 16th. Voters in Lethbridge will be given opportunities to meet their candidates and express their concerns over the next couple of weeks. Bridge City News will be at the All Candidates Forum next Tuesday and Thursday at the main branch of the Lethbridge Public Library from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. A daytime forum organized by the United Way will focus on nonprofits, and that'll be held on Wednesday of next week from 9:30 till 11:30 a.m. in the University of Lethbridge's Penny Building on 5th Street South. Then on April 9th, the Family Centre will host a family-focused forum from 5 till 7 p.m. on the second floor of the Melcor Centre. NDP Lethbridge East candidate Maria Fitzpatrick stopped by our studio recently. Fitzpatrick says one of the biggest accomplishments that her government is most proud of is the $25 a day daycare. She said has helped many Alberta families.
I had to work because I was a single parent, and I had to put a roof over our head. I had to put food on the table, and to find an affordable, quality childcare space was virtually impossible. So I've done that for my children looking for it. I've done that for my grandkids, and now I'm doing it for my great-granddaughter, finding a space that's affordable and where she can go, and I know she's going to be looked after properly.
Catch my full interview with Maria Fitzpatrick, Lethbridge East NDP candidate, coming up in the second half of our show. NDP leader Rachel Notley has gone on record saying safe drug use sites have saved hundreds of lives. Her UCP counterpart Jason Kenney said if he becomes premier, he would launch a study to determine if current sites are properly situated to meet their goal of harm reduction without causing crime in surrounding neighborhoods. Speaking in Calgary recently, Kenney also says there's not been enough emphasis on treatment and addiction recovery when it comes to safe consumption sites. He says the UCP government would invest an extra $10 million into additional detox and mobile detox beds across the province. UCP leader Jason Kenney stopped by our studio a while ago, explaining why he is the best candidate to become the Premier of Alberta. Kenney says our province needs a leader who can take on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau head-on while standing up for Albertans.
I think what people are looking for is somebody to fight for this province against Justin Trudeau and his government's attacks on our province. Right now we have a government that's acting more like a lapdog for Ottawa than a watchdog for Alberta. We need a premier who, like Peter Lougheed, when he stood up to Pierre Trudeau's national energy program, will stand up to this Prime Minister Trudeau's attacks against our energy industry, the federal carbon tax, the shutdown of Energy East, the changes of regulations at the National Energy Board, the unfair equalization formula. So I make no bones about it. We're going to need somebody who has the strength, and the ability to stand up to Justin Trudeau. Fortunately, he was my critic in opposition for 3 years. I know him very well, and I invite anybody to go online and look at the debates where Justin and I had exchanges back and forth, and they can draw their own conclusions about who got the better of those.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered his reaction to Quebec's new secularism legislation. It is a bill banning the wearing of religious symbols for many public sector employees. The PM also slammed New Brunswick for its opposition to the federal carbon tax.
I think one of the things that a lot of Quebecers are going to be asking in the coming hours and days is about how this proposed law is actually going to work. And quite frankly, I expect a large number of Quebecers to have some serious questions about that, because Quebecers, like all Canadians, are proud of living in a free and just society. And I don't think a lot of people feel that in a free society we should be legitimizing discrimination of our citizens based on religion. I regret that the government of New Brunswick doesn't think that putting a price on pollution is important. It's the 21st century. We know climate change is real. We know that one of the challenges we have is that pollution has been free. We need to put a price on it.
Canadian Finance Minister Bill Morneau says there are clouds hanging over trade talks as Canada struggles with American tariffs and the trade war between the U.S. and China drags on.
They are clouds. I mean, these are challenges. We have to address them head on. The frame is that what's going on underneath these things are people around the industrialized world questioning the benefits of globalization, looking at the benefits of automation that they see coming and reacting in a way that lead politicians to do things that I think are not in our long-term best interests. So that's the backdrop. So it's real. That's why we're trying to make sure that Canadians feel more confident. From the standpoint of the actual negotiations going on, starting with the U.S.-China negotiation, we're in very regular contact. I'm in weekly contact with the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. They're progressing. I mean, there are regular meetings going on. They're making progress. I don't want to give people a sense that this is going to be a short-term fix, though. The approach to Canadian companies investing in China and intellectual property transfer is more challenging than it is for a Chinese company coming to Canada. There's real issues here that we are trying to deal with. It seems to me unlikely that we'll solve all of them in the short term. But I'm cautiously optimistic that the U.S. and China will actually make some progress in those discussions.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, tells me that we shouldn't expect an early federal election call. It looks like we'll be going to the polls on October 21st. Ray says the Trudeau Liberals have to manage some damage control in regards to the SNC-Lavalin affair. I also chatted with Ray about Maxime Bernier's new federal party, the People's Party of Canada, and how recruiting plans have been coming along for the PPC.
April 23rd. He says the PPC is not going to do anything special to attract female candidates or candidate from the so-called visible minorities. They say that people are already stepping up, from the different ethnic groups and different gender. So he says that's not going to be a problem. He believes that he's going to be, he'll have a full slate of candidates for the next election in all 338 ridings across Canada, and that's going to be a diverse slate of candidates.
Watch the full interview with Ray Fillion discussing some of the biggest stories coming out of Ottawa after business news. Lethbridge firefighters were called out to a blaze around 3 a.m. this morning at a 3-story apartment complex on 15th Street South. Officials quickly put out the fire on the second floor, which appeared to have started in the parking garage below. There were no reports of any injuries. Crews were able to rescue 5 residents from the upper floors. The fire investigation has been completed, and fire officials say due to the extensive damage, the cause of the fire could not be determined. The complex has now been turned back over to the owner. Lethbridge Fire Chief Rich Hildebrand will call 2019 his last year on the job. He's been the working chief for the past 4 years and looks fondly on his career, which began back in 1985.
The department, the uniform, a lot of my identity is wrapped up in, frankly, in the job that I've done for the past 31 years. And so, it wasn't easy to decide to retire, but on the other hand, I know that there are so many other things that I'd like to do. Yeah, no, there's no doubt that we've been part of bringing life into the world, part of trying to preserve life, and I'm not going to say I saved a lot of people. I helped some people along the way. And helping people, I think, again, is just exactly what this uniform stands for. We get to do that every day, and it's a privilege to be able to deliver the services we do in the community and all the trust that this uniform stands for.
August 13th will be Chief Hildebrand's final day on the job. The World Men's Curling Championships are set to begin at the NMAC Centre tomorrow and will run all week. Foursomes, including Team Canada, had a chance to take to the ice for some practice earlier today. Ainsley O'Reilly has the details.
It's finally here. The World Men Curling Championships are in Lethbridge. For Canadian curling phenom Kevin Cooey, it's his 4th trip to the World Championships and his first in Canada. A Calgary native, Cooey can't wait for the roars of a hometown crowd.
Honestly, couldn't pick a better spot if I got to choose where I'd want the event. Close to home in our home province. We'll have lots of family and friends, expect good crowds. Lethbridge is a great city, so like I said, I can't wait, and hopefully there's good crowds.
Teams from 13 countries will be competing, and although he's confident, Cooey isn't taking any of his matchups lightly.
A lot of, the favorites that we see all year, Scotland, Sweden, Switzerland, the States. So, we're definitely gonna have to play well, but the conditions look great, which is a big plus. The world is different than it used to be, right? Every team is tough, even some of the teams a lot of people aren't familiar with. So we're gonna have to play well, but I think we're up to the challenge.
The 4-time Tim Hortons Brier winner is set for tomorrow and happy to be home.
Oh, we'll have all our families, lots of friends, lots of sponsors. Hopefully it happens. There'd be no better place to win it for sure. But we're not going to start worrying about that yet before the event even starts.
Saturday's opener of the round-robin tournament will be a big one for Cooey. He's going to be taking on Korea and Russia at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. at the NMAC Centre. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
The Lethbridge Hurricanes returned home all tied up at 2 games apiece in their first round of the WHL series against the Calgary Hitmen. The Canes dropped Game 4 by a score of 5-2 in Calgary last night. Due to the World Men's Curling Championships taking place at the NMAC Centre, Game 5 for the Canes will take place at the Nicholas Sharon Arena. Parking will be limited, so fans are encouraged to carpool or use the free parking at the U of L and shuttle to the game. Doors open at 6 o'clock tomorrow. The game starts at 7. If Game 7 is necessary, it too will be played at Nicholas Sharon Arena. A Raymond High School teacher and coach has been found not guilty of sexual exploitation and child luring. Family members of Gentry Jack Salmon hugged and celebrated the verdict from Justice E.C. Wilson. The judge says he was left with doubt that Salmon and a female student met on multiple occasions in 2016 for secret liaisons. While he said credibility was an issue for both parties, he accepted the accused wife's testimony, who said her husband was always home with her and her young family at night. Salmon admitted that he did meet with the girl off school property 5 times, but only to help her deal with the school-related issues. The Westwind School Division says now that the trial is over, it'll still do an internal review into Salmon's conduct. A second-grade teacher was among the wounded when a man opened fire earlier this week on a Seattle street. Deborah Judd says she does not understand why she was shot. 2 people were killed in the shooting.
I was zipping along. I think I was eating Cheez-Its, and I came around the corner, and this guy he walked straight out in the middle of the road and just pointed the gun at me and just shot me. And then he shot me again. And I could feel it go here and here. And then the car kept moving. I didn't stop. And it swerved over to the side, and I stopped. And he shot one more time, which broke my back window. The man across the street said, I saw him shoot him in the face and the head. It's just all kind of unreal.
American Airlines pilots say passengers should feel confident while flying in Boeing's troubled 737 MAX 8 jetliners because they are. The planes have been grounded around the world, including here in Canada, since 2 fatal crashes occurred in recent months.
I'd say that the first confidence of passengers needs to come with the pilots that are in the cockpit. And if we feel confident with what we have in front of us, they should feel confident flying with us. You know, for us at American, we have to just really concern ourselves with our operation. And I think our training is speaks for itself. I mean, you know, what happens in the rest of the world is really something that they have to address. But at American, I think we address it, and through the Allied Pilots Association, constantly dealing with the safety aspect, both in the training, simulators, pilot hiring, and onward from there.
Now here is your daily dose of cuteness. 3 critically endangered Sumatran tiger cubs made their public debut at a zoo in Sydney, Australia today.
There's only around 350 of them left in the wild, estimated. And the threats that they're facing in the wild are habitat loss through deforestation, and a lot of that's to do with palm oil plantations.
A tribute to classic comedians and a great child's movie are some of the films you can look forward to seeing at the Mill this weekend. Here is Len Binning once again with another Movie Mill Minute.
Laurel and Hardy is played by Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly in the film Stan and Ollie. They try to resurrect their career from years past and they go on tour, but it's grueling and health concerns are a problem.
How do you feel about the size of the audiences?
I've been a little disappointed.
And they said, could you persuade Stan and Ollie to do some publicity in order to turn the tour around?
Will there be any more money?
They said no.
Well, who is they?
People. The worst kind.
From visionary filmmaker James Cameron, we take a look at Alita, Battle Angel. Alita is woken up and she has no memory of who she is. Turns out she's a repurposed robot set in the future.
When I found you, your very human brain was miraculously intact.
It's the loneliest feeling not to know who you are.
In time, you'll remember.
I remember black skies, the lightning all around me.
Alita is new here.
At the Movie Mill, your family is always welcome. We invite you to bring your family to visit our family.
It should be a great weekend for spring skiing. The BCN Ski Report and a complete look at the long-range weather forecast are coming up. We had kind of a mixed bag today. Sun mixed with cloud and slightly cooler. Tonight, just a few clouds with a low near -3. Tomorrow, lots of sunshine and a high near 15 degrees. Sunday, a low-pressure system returns, bringing clouds and the mercury dropping to 9. Monday, a good chance of flurries developing and a high of only 6 degrees. Tuesday, the cloud should dissipate with a high near 6 again. Wednesday, mainly cloudy and a high of 5. Pretty much the same picture on Thursday, mainly cloudy with a high again near 5 degrees. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 9 degrees and an average low of -4. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1966 at 23 degrees, and the record low was -17 in 1965. Sunrise was at 7:15, sunset at 7:57. Let's have a look at tomorrow's national forecast now. Lots of sunshine and 14 is expected in Victoria. Sunny and 1 degree cooler for Vancouver. Calgary will be partly cloudy and 11. Edmonton will be mainly sunny and 9. A mixture of sun and cloud and 8 degrees for Regina tomorrow. Mainly cloudy and 9 for Saskatoon. Cooler in Winnipeg with a high of only 2 degrees on Saturday. Periods of rain and 5 is on tap for Toronto. Snow and 0 for Ottawa. Montreal will have snow mixed with rain and a high of +4. There will also be rain and 6 degrees in Fredericton, New Brunswick on Saturday. A mix of sun and cloud and 7 for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Charlottetown, PEI will have light showers and 5. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain and a high near 6 degrees for tomorrow. Canola producers across the prairies and in Ontario say they're closely watching as Canada's trade relationship with China continues to sour. Sheridan Farms elevator manager Jeff Curry says many are concerned about the export bans on Canadian canola. China banned canola exports from Manitoba-based Richardson International last month, and this week a similar ban on Regina's Viterra. Authorities cite concerns over alleged contaminated shipments. Curry says there is fear that China could extend the ban to other crops. The European Union says a chaotic Brexit is now a likely scenario after British MPs voted down Prime Minister Theresa May's divorce deal for a third time. May says the implications of Parliament's failure to support Britain leaving the EU in an orderly fashion are grave. The legal default of the vote would be for Britain to leave the bloc without a divorce deal on April 12th, which could lead to severe disruptions to trade. UK lawmakers plan to hold a series of votes Monday in an attempt to find a new plan. Lyft is lifting the price target for its initial public offering. Many feel it is a sign of the excitement surrounding the stock market debut of a ride-hailing service that is gaining ground on its rival Uber.
Their biggest focus right now is growing. We're seeing that in Lyft's revenues. They're again growing 150% year over year for the past 2 years. That is a massive growth that you just don't find in other companies. That growth, though, comes at a cost. So whether that's in the form of investing in additional services, whether it's the form of subsidizing rides, those expenses pile up, and that's why these companies can't make money. Another important consideration, though, is that Lyft's losses are actually growing at a significantly slower rate than their revenue. So they have that ability to control their margins, which should play out in the long run. So again, they're subsidizing rides currently. If those subsidies go away because they have to lower costs, the natural response is that ride costs have to go up. That's just the nature of the thing. Lyft opens the floodgates for Uber, obviously, but it's not just ride sharing that should benefit from that. There are other unicorn companies that are coming up to go public. So within that, you have Slack, you have Pinterest, you have Postmates. It's a lot of household names which always draw a lot of attention, but they're highly valued household names. Again, the aggregate value of companies that are prepared to go IPO is over $100 billion. That's $100 billion of high growth value coming to markets.
Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, voters in Lethbridge will be given opportunities to meet their candidates and express their concerns at an all-candidates forum. They take place next Tuesday and Thursday at the main branch of the Lethbridge Public Library from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. Watch for Bridge City News. We will be there as well. Many NDP candidates feel that they have a great chance of being re-elected. Here with Lethbridge East candidate Maria Fitzpatrick feels are the biggest issues as we head into next month's provincial election. That interview is coming up next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The third annual CD Saturday is taking place March 30th from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization. More than 20 exhibitors will be selling everything from plants and seeds to garden tools. Plus, a seed swap will be taking place, so all are encouraged to bring extra seeds to give away. Take in several workshops on topics like bees and creating healthy soil. Admission is free and all are welcome. For more information, visit environmentlethbridge.ca/CD Saturday. Calling all foodies. Do you love browsing through the latest cookbook and trying new recipes? The Lethbridge Public Library main branch is hosting the Joy of Cookbooks on the second Thursday of the month, beginning April 11th at 7 p.m. Meet others who share a passion for cooking, share recipes, plus each month hear from guest speakers and take in special Epicurean activities. For more information, visit lethlib.ca. Celebrate Recovery is a Christ-centered recovery program for any hurt, hang-up, and habit. This group meets Friday nights at the Park Meadows Baptist Church. The evening begins at 6 p.m. with supper and follows with an opportunity to share and connect with others in small groups. For more information, visit celebraterecovery.ca. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
We are in the middle of a hotly contested provincial election, and we want to hear from all of the Lethbridge candidates. Today, joining me in studio is incumbent MLA with us, Maria Fitzpatrick, the NDP candidate for Lethbridge East. Welcome to Bridge City News, Maria.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
That's awesome. Okay, how has the campaigning been going so far? You're knocking on those doors. What are people telling you? What are the big issues?
Okay, so people talk always about healthcare, about wait times, about education, smaller class sizes, jobs, diversifying our economy. They want to hear what's going on. They have lots of ideas that they share with me. And I hear a lot of positive responses on the door about people really like what we've done over the last 4 years and encourage me to continue with that.
What about pipelines? I mean, can the current government really help in that regard too? With pipelines? Because as you know, with Alberta, we like to reinvent ourselves a little bit with greener technology, but we're still a lot of oil and gas. It's a big part of our identity here.
It certainly is. And as I'm sure you know, Rachel Notley has been fighting right from the beginning to get those pipelines built to Tidewater. Everyone in this province knows that we have to get better value for our product. And Rachel has been working to the limit trying to make that happen. And certainly our entire party is behind her doing that. That's why we've been really steadfast in terms of the feds have to get their job done so that we can get our job done.
Now, what about the hotly debated carbon tax? Is it actually reducing emissions? Is it having much of a tangible effect on global warming? I mean, we're a pretty small polluter when we talk, especially the world. You know, when you've got the Indias, the Chinas, and the United States who are out there, right?
Well, I certainly think the entire world needs to do better, but we are doing our job. Ever since the Climate Leadership Plan was implemented, we've reduced our emissions by 7 megatons. That's huge. To put it in perspective, that's 1/3 of what Manitoba's entire emissions are.
Now, what do you say to the critics who argue that the carbon tax is actually making Alberta less competitive in the global economy, considering so many countries, Maria, they don't have a carbon levy?
Okay, so I'm going to use an example right here in Lethbridge, and that's Cavendish Farms. Cavendish came in knowing that we had a carbon levy and absolutely looked at other markets other than right here in Lethbridge. In fact, North Dakota was being considered. They came here, and they came here because we have an $11 billion tax advantage over just about any other jurisdiction. We have no provincial sales tax. We are an ideal place for a company to come. They invested right at the beginning, knowing we had a carbon levy, $258 million. Now, they have continued to invest, and we are now pushing about $500 million. Private investment, and we have a carbon levy.
Now, you talked about Alberta not having a provincial sales tax. Has there been any talk within the caucus, within the NDP, potentially implementing one to help with a lot of the deficit that we have right now and the debt that just keeps on piling on and on?
No. That's a simple answer. We are not talking about a sales tax.
Okay. Now, every election, governments like to throw money at healthcare. But you know what, Maria? I've noticed that the wait times are still very long at hospitals. And let's look at a city the size of Lethbridge, 100,000 people. We have one cardiologist. What can we do to address the issue of the shortage of specialists in our city?
Well, certainly I think we've got to encourage specialists to come here. Lethbridge is an incredible city to live in, and we need to encourage people. But people don't know what Lethbridge is like.
So how do we do that, do you think?
Well, I think I've certainly done my part to do that. And if you want to check Hansard, you can see how many times I said I love Lethbridge and why I love Lethbridge in the Alberta legislature. I talk about it at many different places. I've spoken at forums across the country, and I've talked about how much I love Lethbridge and why I love Lethbridge. It is an incredible city. It has a diversity that I don't think other cities in Alberta have. And we have an economy that spreads right across southern Alberta. And I would say that Lethbridge is certainly an area that helped maintain our equilibrium during the recession. Lethbridge felt very little in terms of the recession because we've got a diversified economy.
Okay, let's say I'm an oncologist, cancer doctor, and you want to encourage me to move to Lethbridge. I mean, yes, it's nice that you have a passion about your city, right? It's affordable, it's beautiful here, but what else can the NDP offer to encourage me to move to Lethbridge?
Okay, so I've actually had conversations with different groups of doctors here in the city, and in fact had a conversation with Dr. Zilke, who's the cardiologist that we have here, about a cath lab. And we've provided that information to the health minister because we know that we need to move forward and we need to have those kinds of services here. I've talked to the anesthesiologist about having a pain management clinic, which would actually help in terms of the opioid crisis. So there are many things. There are many people have chosen to come to Lethbridge because they've heard a little bit about it. The weather here is way better than anywhere else in the province, and there's lots of amenities, and it's still small town. You can get from one side of the town to the other in 15 minutes, east or west, north or south, and people like that, especially people who've lived in bigger cities, have done their education in bigger cities, and we have a university and a college here. So if they're coming here and they have children, they know that they can be educated right here without leaving town.
And it's a lot more affordable too than a lot of the bigger cities,
It
right?
certainly is.
You could still buy a nice house for under $300,000.
You certainly can.
Yeah. Now, what about, let's talk about childcare. And the NDP made some recent announcements about expanding childcare. Can you share a bit with our viewers about that?
Okay, so first of all, everybody that I've spoken to that has children is ecstatic about that announcement. There are a number of people who had kids in the $25 a day child care spaces, and there were other parents who just didn't happen to be in the right facility and they didn't get that. This announcement means every single child in Alberta has access to a child care space at $25 a day.
But what about some of the rural areas? That's where people have concerns. Not just
Well,
the cities, right?
The announcement is every child in Alberta should have access to a $25 a day childcare space. And I have to say, from my personal perspective, my older daughter is in her 40s, and when she was a baby, and I had to work because I was a single parent, and I had to put a roof over our head, I had to put food on the table, and to find an affordable, quality childcare space was virtually impossible. So I've done that for my children looking for it, I've done that for my grandkids, and now I'm doing it for my great-granddaughter, finding a space that's affordable and where she can go, and I know she's going to be looked after properly.
Let's talk about older children who are in classes now in school. Many teachers I've spoken with are concerned about class size, you know, the student per teacher ratio right now. What's being done to address that? What are some of the concerns you're hearing from teachers as well?
Okay, so certainly teachers do talk about class sizes. In the past 4 years, we have funded for enrollment, which means that we actually have 4,000 more teachers in Alberta than we did in 2015. And a part of that is about the number of kids in the class. I think that we can do better. We have to do better. And we have committed to funding for enrollment. In this coming year, we are expecting 15,000 new students in school. We have to have the teachers to support those kids in school, and we are adamant that we will do that. And I mean, the opposition has said they're going to make a huge cut, $4.5 billion. Where do you think that's going to be cut? Teachers, nurses, doctors, hospitals. You can't go there.
Speaking of the opposition, the UCP announced that they would go back to the 2014 Alberta Education Act, which still allows for GSA clubs in school, but does allow teachers to let parents know if their child joins a GSA. A lot of parents I've talked to say, you know what, I want to know if my child has joined a GSA. I'm the parent of this child.
Okay.
I should know more than a teacher should.
Okay.
Right?
So
that's their concern.
First of all,
Yeah.
I want every single child in school to be safe. And what GLBTQ2S kids have said to me, again, over and over again, is that they want a place where they can go and they can feel safe and supported. I've asked them about the rights of their parents, about their parents knowing, and they have said they want to tell their parents when they are ready to tell their parents, but in the meantime, they need a supportive environment. And I know parents love their kids. I know I never told my mom about being on the basketball team because she wasn't keen about me doing sports. And in fact, once I was playing sports, she was a little better with it, but I wasn't ready to tell her that's what I was doing. I love sports, and for me, it helped me be a better student. So I think if kids are feeling supported, they're actually going to do better in school. And I know that at some point when they tell their parents how they're feeling, that their parents will support them.
Why do you think a child would be more apt to tell a teacher as opposed to a parent who raised them and has loved them and nurtured them since birth?
Okay, so the kids that have spoken to me told me that they were concerned that their parents would reject them if they told them. And as a parent, I can't imagine anybody rejecting their child. Of
course not.
But the truth is the perception of that person. And if those kids have that perception, then we have to allow them to be ready to share that information so that the parents can be supportive.
What about the parents who say the GSA clubs are a nice, safe environment for those in the LGBTQ2+ community? It seems to be getting longer, but you know, they feel safe, but at the same time, they're maybe bringing in or implementing an ideology that doesn't align with our beliefs. You know, how our children were raised at home. So maybe parents are concerned about that. So how do you address those concerns?
Well, again, I think that children that are joining GSAs are doing it because they are looking for a supportive environment, and where other people are feeling the same way that they are. To be very honest, I think that parents have to they have to understand that kids aren't going to tell them everything right away. And if there's a discussion about the way they've been brought up or religious beliefs, then when the kids share that with their parents, that's a time when the kids are ready to have that conversation with their parents. But I've always believed that people need to be respected. And I think GSAs gives kids an opportunity to feel respected and to talk about what their concerns are and why they haven't shared with their parents.
It's funny you bring up respect, because the parents I've talked to said they feel disrespected because they're not being told. But anyway, we'll leave that at that. Let's talk about some of the pre-election goodies, the spending. I mean, Transport Minister Brian Mason was in town recently, $100 million for the bridge.
That's right.
Going to be constructed in 2022. Maria, let's talk. What other pre-election goodies can we look forward to seeing here leading up to the April 16th election?
Okay, so the Premier was here last week and announced 2,000 more long-term care beds.
Yeah, we got
and when in 2015, when we announced we'd do 2,000, in fact, we've done a little bit more than 2,000. I don't think we realized how many more beds were going to be needed, but in doing this process and in getting those beds in place, we realized that there's a whole demographic that are moving into this area that will require long-term care beds. So I'm really happy about that announcement. I'm a senior, and I mean, I hope that I'm not going to need to access a long-term care bed for a while, but I am part of that demographic, and I talk to lots of people I'm a member at Norbridge, so I see seniors all the time who talk to me about finding a space.
Any good crib tournaments going on there, or bridge?
Well, there's an absolutely fabulous jam session at Norbridge on Monday morning at 9:30.
Oh, there you
so you really should go check it out.
Okay.
Yes.
NDP is promising to spend $1.4 billion to build new roads across Alberta and an escape route for Fort McMurray area residents. Let's chat a bit about that too, supporting some of the infrastructure in our province.
Okay, so first of all, Fort McMurray needs that additional road out of there, as we saw during the fire. Infrastructure has been in deficit for quite some time, and we have begun to take care of that infrastructure. Certainly our bridge over the Old Man River on Highway 3 is part of that. Schools, all kinds of things that need to be done that were on the books for years and hadn't been done, and probably should have been done during times of boom and weren't. So now we're left with this deficit, and we're trying to address that deficit. We need that money. I hear from the county over and over again about the roads in the county that are their responsibility. The bridges that are in the county that are sustaining weights that the bridges were never built for. So there is certainly a large deficit, and we've been going through it. We've completed or renovated or built 244 new schools. So that's a pretty huge number, and in fact we've got 5 in Lethbridge that are either new or refurbished that we've completed during this tenure. And I should say we haven't completed the one on the southeast yet, but the tenure or the school board has put out the request for bids, and we're expecting that build to happen very soon.
Maria Fitzpatrick, MLA and NDP candidate for Lethbridge East, thanks a lot for joining me in studio today.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
As we reported on Bridge City News, recent poll numbers have put Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's approval rating at just 40%, which is less than U.S. President Donald Trump's 43%. Many attribute that to the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Joining me now to talk about that and other big issues from the Hill is our national parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion. Ray, it seems like our Prime Minister has apologized a lot over the last couple of months, most recently to an Indigenous woman who was tossed from a Liberal fundraiser in Toronto earlier this week. The protester was concerned about mercury levels in various First Nations communities, and that really hasn't helped his approval rating.
No, absolutely not, Hal. You're absolutely right. I mean, the Prime Minister was taking part in a Liberal Party fundraising activity on Wednesday evening in Toronto when a woman stood up with a banner. She started yelling at the Prime Minister. She was, as you said, complaining that many people in her community have been dealing with a serious issue, mercury poisoning. And the Prime Minister's response left a lot of people appalled. He looked at her as she was being escorted out of the room by security, and he said, "Thank you for your donation to the Liberal Party. We really appreciate it." Of course, the next day, the Prime Minister had to apologize. He said that he was disrespectful, so at least he acknowledged that his reaction to that wasn't the best, wasn't what it should be. And this, of course, comes on the heels of the SNC-Lavalin affair, in which Jody Wilson-Raybould, a Native cabinet minister and a First Nations cabinet minister, resigned. So tension is running high these days between First Nations and the Prime Minister's office. You were talking about that poll seconds ago. You're right. It's an Ipsos Reid Global News poll that was released on Thursday morning, which shows Justin Trudeau's approval rating is now at 40% here in Canada compared to 43% in the States for Donald Trump. So he's less popular here than Donald Trump is in the United States. According to the same survey, the Tories are now 10 points ahead in voting intention across the country right now. So the Liberals have had better days, and of course the Tories are on the moon right now. They're very excited about what's happening.
Ray, things may not be getting any easier for our Prime Minister as we're waiting possibly yet more revelations from Jody Wilson-Raybould, who tabled documents at the Justice Committee earlier this week.
Yeah, a lot of people here in the nation's capital, including yours truly, are holding our breaths these days. Jody Wilson-Raybould promised last Friday that she would table more documents. We're talking here about emails, text messages, and a written statement to the Justice Committee of the House of Commons. And she did so on Tuesday evening. Now, those documents have yet to be made public because they still need to be reviewed. They need to be redacted. They don't want any confidential information like phone numbers, private email addresses to be made public. They also need to translate the documents into French. And we're expecting at some point on Friday, possibly Friday afternoon, early Friday evening, that those documents will be made public. The big question is, will there be any bombshells in those documents? That's what we're waiting to see right now.
And it appears as though the Liberals are becoming increasingly fed up with both Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott.
Oh, absolutely. The two former cabinet ministers, Hal, seem to be after the prime minister. I mean, picture this. The Liberals held a caucus meeting last week. It was on Wednesday morning. They said that the issue of Jane Philpott and Jody Wilson-Raybould's presence within the Liberal caucus wasn't even discussed because they say everybody wants to turn the page. They've had enough of the SNC-Lavalin controversy. They really want to move on. And they said stuff like, you know, diversity of opinion is something that's very important within the Liberal Party. We want to keep Jane and Jody within the big Liberal tent, as they call it. Problem is, the very next day, on Thursday morning, Maclean's magazine published a scathing article, an interview with Jane Philpott, in which she said, you know what? We haven't gotten to the bottom of the story where the SNC-Lavalin affair is concerned. There are more revelations about things that Canadians ought to know about. So a lot of Liberals became sort of discouraged. They say, well, what's going on here? Is she playing with the team or against the team? And then on Friday morning, her friend Jody Wilson-Raybould sent that letter to the Justice Committee saying she's going to be tabling more evidence, including that written statement, so possibly more embarrassing revelations to come for the government. So it's going to be very interesting when the Liberals are back in town. Right now, nobody's in Ottawa. It's a break week. The House of Commons wasn't sitting this week, but everybody's going to be back in the nation's capital next week. They're going to have yet another caucus meeting on Wednesday. It's going to be very interesting. I don't get the feeling a lot of Liberals want Jane Philpott and Jody Wilson-Raybould to stay on as Liberal caucus members, even though most of them aren't willing to admit that publicly.
And you know, even with all of the controversy surrounding Trudeau and the Liberals, our Prime Minister says his team is more united than ever?
Yeah, he said that earlier this week following the marathon of votes in the House of Commons, courtesy of the Conservatives. The MPs from all parties spent some 34 hours straight in the House of Commons voting on a whole bunch of things. It was a pressure tactic, of course, by the Conservatives who wanted to protest against the Liberals' decision to not let Jody Wilson-Raybould testify again before the House's Justice Committee. And the Prime Minister has said that experience strengthened bonds between Liberal MPs. But interestingly, Jane Philpott and Jody Wilson-Raybould weren't present. They were not in the House of Commons for the marathon. The Canadian press reported they were warned by some members of caucus to stay away because they fear that with fatigue, some MPs might be tempted to say or do certain things that would have been nasty, perhaps. So, but yeah, as I said earlier, I'm expecting another very interesting caucus next week when everybody's back in town.
And the Liberals rejected a request to have the Ethics Committee investigate the SNC-Lavalin controversy. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. As you know, the Justice Committee held a few weeks of hearings. Jody Wilson-Raybould testified a few times. The Liberals decided not to let her get a second kick at the can. So the Conservatives and the New Democrats turned to the Ethics Committee. They tried to persuade their Liberal friends across the table to launch an inquiry there, but the Liberals used their majority once again to block any such investigation. And the reason they gave was that it's premature for the Ethics Committee to launch an investigation into the SNC-Lavalin affair right now. They say that's because the Ethics Commissioner is already investigating, and there are also those documents that Jody Wilson-Raybould has filed with the Justice Committee. The Tories claim that the cover-up continues, and they're promising to keep pushing, although they wouldn't tell us this week exactly what their next tactic is going to be. But obviously, the Tories don't want to end there. They want to push this thing. They want to talk about it for everything it has to give.
Now, Ray, I'm hearing some rumors we could be going to the polls earlier than October for the federal election.
Yeah, that's right. That rumor's been circulating for a while, and some pundits wrote about it. I know Chantal Hébert wrote a piece about it in the Toronto Star earlier this week, and that was enough for the Conservatives to call on their donors to give money, because they say Justin Trudeau, with everything that's going on, might not be tempted to wait until the fall to go to the polls. But the Liberals are still telling us, and they're adamant about it, they're going to wait until October 21st. They say that's when the election is going to take place. So we'll wait and see. But personally, I don't see it happening before the fall, Hal. That's just my guess.
A big story on the Hill as well is the Quebec secularism bill. It's generating a lot of reaction, Ray.
Yeah, it was tabled on Tuesday morning in the National Assembly in Quebec City. Basically, what it does is if you work for the government and you're in a position of authority, if you're a police officer, a firefighter, a teacher, a security guard, you work for the Quebec government, you're not allowed to wear any religious symbol, be it a cross, being a turban, a kirpan, any sort of head covering or face covering. In the case of Muslims, you're not allowed to wear them. They say that they want to have a secular society in Quebec, and that starts with the government. Obviously, that generated a lot of reaction throughout the day on Thursday, including from the Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau says he's totally against that. He says it should be up to people, individual people, to decide what to wear and what not to wear. We're not done hearing about this. We don't know at this point whether or not the federal government will take any measures against Quebec. Are they going to take this thing to court or not? That remains to be seen. But yeah, very controversial piece of legislation tabled in Quebec's National Assembly on Thursday morning.
Ray, what's the latest with the People's Party of Canada, the PPC? How is former Tory Maxime Bernier doing with his new party?
Well, he held a news conference to talk about precisely that earlier this week. He says that he's ready for the next election. He actually announced that the PPC has opened an online process for people to submit their candidacies if they want to run as candidates for the PPC. It's a process that's going to be open to everyone until April 23rd. He says the PPC is not going to do anything special to attract female candidates or candidate from the so-called visible minorities. They say that people are already stepping up, from the different ethnic groups and different gender. So he says that's not going to be a problem. He believes that he's going to be, he'll have a full slate of candidates for the next election in all 338 ridings across Canada, and that's going to be a diverse slate of candidates.
Now, here's an interesting statistic. A growing number of Canadians say they worry about climate change. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's according to an Abacus poll that was made public a couple of days ago. They say 83% of Canadians are quite, very, or extremely concerned about climate change. Only 18% of Canadians who responded to that survey say they're not that concerned or not at all concerned. Now, that shows one thing, once again, that the environment is going to be a very big issue in the next election, especially with the millennials, the younger Canadians, for whom the environment is something that's very important to them. They're going to be making up, along with the boomers, the largest cohort of voters in the October election. Abacus data also says that affordability is becoming a very serious issue. People worrying about their taxes, about making ends meet. So that looks like good news for the Conservatives, obviously. What's fascinating, and I'm going to end this point on this, is that the poll says 81% of people in 4 provinces, the 4 provinces that are going to be dealing with the Trudeau carbon tax, Ontario, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and New Brunswick, believe the carbon tax has already increased costs. But the problem is the carbon tax is only coming into effect on Monday, April 1st. But the perception is already there that the federal carbon tax is already causing prices to go up.
And a lot of business owners I've spoken to here in Alberta are not happy with the carbon tax, saying it's making them less competitive than regions that don't have the carbon levy, right? How about Bill C-71? What's the latest from the Hill? Last time I chatted with Michelle Rempel, the Calgary Tory MP, and the Lethbridge MP, Rachel Harder. They had a lot of, tens of thousands of signatures they were presenting on the Hill there in regards to Bill C-71, saying that you're really going after responsible gun owners and not so much about the violent gun crime. What's the latest there, Ray?
Well, nothing really new. The government is staying on course. They haven't announced any changes. Mind you, Parliament wasn't sitting this week, so we haven't seen the Public Safety Minister nor Minister Bill Blair. So no news on that front as of yet, Hal. As far as I know, the bill is chugging along. It's being studied, I believe, in the Senate, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't checked lately, but I believe it is being studied at the Senate committee level right now. And the government shows no intention of backing down.
Wow, definitely keep an eye on that. Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, joining me once again from Ottawa. Thanks, Ray.
You bet.
On behalf of all of us here at PCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.